it's funny in a minute of anger how you can't remember, or you don't remember things clearly. So I was painting a floor once. I'm just painting. If I'm doing this, I got to fix the floor. I got it 90% done. Had the white walls already painted. I'm putting down this reddish floor and reddish brown floor. And just last point, the guy from downstairs was getting crazy from the fumes. His wife was getting crazy from the fumes. She's nagging him. He comes upstairs and says, "You got to stop painting." I said, "I'm 5 minutes from finishing." And he kicks the bucket of paint, goes against the wall. I'm mad. You know, he kicks the paint. I had the paintbrush. I slap him across the face with the paintbrush. Then he kicks me the way up. Then finally it finishes. It passes. We have to calm down from this. But for a longest time, I remembered he kicked me. I didn't remember that I put the paintbrush in his mouth or against his mouth and added to the scenario. The competition, it calmed down, you know. But for a while, that adrenaline, we didn't know anytime we meet whether it would blow up or not. So in the rush of doing something, it's easy to justify what you're doing. That's the encouragement of Jupiter Mars. And for any athlete, anybody trying to do something, they're going to push things. But if you're pushing things against the law or against what's normal, you're going against Saturn. There's a limit to how much you can do. And if you go past that, it can implode and explode on you. What you put out will come back. What you don't put out, someone's getting hurt and you don't help. You didn't use your Mars. Your understanding becomes associated to, I'm not helping. It wasn't my fault. It wasn't mine. I just got hurt. You get a wrong understanding. You start living according to that. And it starts diminishing the characters and the people and what you can do in your life, which sooner or later can make you sick or run into real big battles and problems when you're being hurt and no one's coming to help you. And you think it's not fair, but at that point you have to think, did I dish this out again? So the understanding of that's to Jupiter Mars. Sometimes the things that just don't seem fair, absolutely, I didn't do anything to deserve this in my life. It can go across it. Maybe you killed someone in another lifetime and it's come back at you this time. So Jupiter's a funny, you can't assume that it's these higher understandings. Often just whatever level of understanding you work with. How do you get your kids to understand the repercussions of sex? Not by being totally repressive. So many misunderstandings about this, but everybody's going to try a run at it. But the sex is also what works you do. What are you doing with your life? You know, if I'm going to be around you, what are you doing? Are you a leader? Are you a follower? Like what? So Jupiter's this puzzle. But often with the Jupiter conjunct, square, opposed, there's going to be the excessive strength. When it's anger, there can be excessive anger. When it's competition, there'll be excessive competition. But the real story is, how do you guide what's right or wrong in that competition? If you're on the wrong side and you're in a team that's hurting people, or you're with a gang or a group of people that's hurting people, where do you wake up to learn, I don't want to put my energy here? How do you get out and change it? How do you how do you change teams? You know, so this is kind of the story of maybe Saul in the Bible, where he was killing all the Christians, then he had a vision, an understanding changed, and then he became the most dedicated apostle. He wanted to atone and fix what he did. So Jupiter has a very profound influence, but it's somewhat invisible because you notice what you're doing, you don't always see how you reach the person's understanding. That's why in places like AA, someone's talking about their experiences, they can reach other people who had similar experiences and have some credibility. But if you've never had a drink, it's going to be hard to help someone who's trying to stop drinking. Okay, this is how Jupiter puts its understanding or misunderstanding to affect what you're doing, to affect who you think you are, to affect what you want, to affect how you're thinking, to affect your sense of security, all the inner planets. Now, when we start looking at the planets going outward, Saturn, we see how the planets affect Jupiter. Jupiter is not so much affecting Saturn, maybe a bit, but really it's applying Saturn. Jupiter is not affecting Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. They're all dumping on Jupiter, trying to change the understanding. In a similar way, the moon and Mercury, the moon and Venus are always trying to seduce Mercury to affect the way it's thinking so we can get more what we want. Here, the Jupiter is trying to guide Mars, and everything really is guiding Mars and everything else. But it depends how Saturn is influencing Jupiter. If there's a good effect, if the understanding is just, wow, noble things can be done. If the understanding is unjust, what guidance is going to come from it? Limited. Okay, I'm back. Good. So generally with the planets, the outer planet affects the inner one. The slower moving one affects the faster moving one, and the energy tends to go that way. So as we've been looking at Jupiter, we're seeing how it affected Moon, how it affected Mercury, how it affected things. We're seeing this movement from the outer understanding and how your values and your principles affect your values, affect your thoughts, affect your things. If you don't have good understanding outwardly, all the other things are going to be impaired or aligned accordingly. So now we're going to look at Saturn coming out. And it's interesting when looking at Saturn coming in and affecting Jupiter, it's going to restrict and limit the expansion. It's going to restrict and limit the understanding. But that limitation of unconditional expansion is a really healthy perspective. It's understanding what work needs to be done to be able to accomplish. If I see what the job is or what responsibilities are, I can then direct the Mars to do things that will actually accomplish this. So the question, what have I done with my life? What have you done with your life? What are you doing with your life? This is the Jupiter, the Mercury is asking the question. Jupiter's trying to figure out what your Mars has done, how you've guided your Mars, and how much you've accomplished Saturn. You mean you just smoked out and tripped out for the last 20 years? You know, like still, even if you'll still have the cycles of Mars and Saturn and Jupiter going on. You'll still have lots of experiences in that way. It just won't be on the same level of understanding as someone else. Everyone's got different understandings. It's easy to justify anything. You can almost self-justify anything by Jupiter. But self-justifying anything is not as appropriate as knowing what's responsible and not. So if you could do anything, but it's important to understand you have to take care. You got to take the garbage out. You got to do your responsibilities before your parents are going to give permission to go out for a night. You know, like simple thing. It's simple. But the Saturn puts its sense of responsibility and authority. Suppose you have a ferocious, horrible, violent, aggressive, severe, unforgiving father. Then you have a strict, strong Saturn imposing those restrictions on one's understanding, and you can have a very inhibited or weak understanding. That's an extreme. Usually I would expect that extreme to be there if Pluto or some other outer planet was also coming into this at the same time. You get in more levels of abuse coming in to affect your understanding. But normally it's just you want to accomplish something, you want to make some money. Okay, you take the garbage out, you do this, you clean the yard, you take care of these things, and you got your allowance. You know, you do it, you don't do it. You understand if you do it, you get something, and you have more you have some money, you have some more freedom to do something. Well, then you do well. And you don't. But if you're not doing it properly and you're not doing well, then someone else has to do it. And Saturn's coming in and saying you don't deserve any reward for this. It starts limiting what you're going to get and what you're able to do. I'd choose someone else who worked better than you if you're not working well. Like Mars becomes like your work of what you're doing. Jupiter's your understanding of it. Saturn's what you're actually achieving. It's your work ethic. It's your discipline, your self-discipline, and how your self-discipline affects your understanding, or does your understanding predominate over your sense of responsibility and duty? Oh, you want respect, you want responsibility, you want accomplishment. Those are Saturn things, and they get imposed on the Jupiter, on the understanding. But Jupiter may not accept those responsibilities, in which case it's going to get in trouble, or waste a lot of time, or not accomplish as much as other people. And we have all sorts of stratas of society and levels of living in any city, in any culture. You have the rich and you have the poor. You have different layers of society. The white collar work, like the doctors and the white collar and the lawyers and that are not going to want their daughter or son to marry someone that was a plumber or working on the streets or just like cleaning streets or doing whatever. Like they're not going to want someone on another level of society. Generally, you try and stick to the same level you're on. To me, I never did, but and you still have your life. So it's what experiences you have, how you assimilate those experiences and make sense of them in terms of what you can accomplish or not. If you think the father is too messed up and was abusive, and you're thinking, I never want to find a job, I'm never going to finish, never going to work for me, then your experiences that will be accumulating will be disassociative, antisocial experiences, which can be just very valid. Many very creative, independent people have that. It's not necessarily right or wrong, it's just a different level of understanding and comprehension. So we come out of our mothers, we come out of our backyards, we run into the rest of the world. And it's very different it's always different from where we came from. It's just a process of progression in life and evolution. And we do it to various degrees of success or not. And the amount that we delay, we're going to have to learn lessons and have to be extra effort to try and catch up. The amount that we don't do things, that'll accumulate, and we'll have to do more later or not get the rewards or the accomplishments or the respect from that. But really, I usually think Jupiter conjunct, square, opposed Saturn, none of these are bad aspects. They're aspects that force the understanding to align with Saturn. It forces you to understand the responsibilities or the commitments or the father or the boss or the achievements. And it forces you to have self-discipline, to understand the value of self-discipline to guide your Mars. In a nice world, those are good things. Of course, if Uranus, Neptune, or Pluto comes up and hits your Mars or hits your Jupiter, it's going to warp this a little bit and try and get around what's just common sense of have to put in the effort to get the reward, to do the work. You want to be in the Scouts, you might have to be a Cub first. You want to be captain of a ship, you're going to have to do the other jobs to get in it first and work your way up. The working your way up. Really, the Boy Scout motto, Girl Guide motto of be prepared. That's Saturn. But the understanding that being prepared, that's a Jupiter wisdom. That's wisdom, and it helps you to guide physical actions to be successful rather than lack of success. So physical actions, that restraint, that responsibility, that understanding, boy, if you have a job and you have a bit of a social life, it's not hard to get sexual experiences and meet people that like to be with you because you're taking care of yourself. You're not draining their energy. If you're not taking care of yourself and you're trying to be with someone, they're going to have to take care of you. Well, different choices, different layers. So Jupiter is the right and wrong of this. Right or wrong of justice, doing something right or wrong with dad, or at least struggling to understand the need for self-discipline. So when there's a stress there, there's more pressure to have to get some self-discipline. And if you're not, there'll be problems with law, with authority, with people, with bosses, till you learn to get an appropriate relationship or some kind of relationship to the Saturn. And as well as you've done that, you'll be able to guide the Mars. Then as long as you're fighting it and don't understand the value of it, you're going to be guiding your Mars to get into trouble and fight the system and fight the authority.